As dads, some days we feel like we have all the answers, and some days we feel like we don't have a clue. If that describes you, you're at the right place. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast. Hey, welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast. I'm Ted Lowe, and I'm joined today by my buddies, Mr. BJ Foster and Mr. Bobby Lewis.
What's going on, Ted?
Hey, Ted. Together, we have 9 children and a whole lot of questions.
Yeah. I'm curious. Here's my first question for you guys. Are you camping guys? You like to go camping?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
I talked to a guy yesterday. He's like, my idea of camping is Marriott, which I was like, yes.
It's not camping.
You guys are good with camping. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge camping guy. I never have been. We went as kids. I was like, it's kind of fun. Now I'm the guy in charge of taking kids camping, and it has become more and more apparent that camping is so much work. It's so much. This past week, a couple of friends took our kids, and we had to prep like the day before. I had to buy all the stuff for s'mores. I went to the lot down the road, cut up chainsaw, firewood. I was buying air mattresses. I was checking the tent peg. I was doing all this stuff. Then we get there, we set it all up. The kids are running around crazy. They're not helping at all. Totally fine. And then it rains the last night, and then we have to put the tent away in the rain, and it's a mess, right? And I looked over at a buddy of mine, and everything's soaked, right? Because it rained the night before. He's doing like the pop-up tent. He's cranking the thing down. He's putting everything away. And 5 feet from him are 8 kids poking the dirt with a stick. And I was like, this is fatherhood right here. All these little things that dads have to do to provide the fun, to do the cool stuff. And the kids, they're blissfully unaware, which is beautiful. I love that they were having fun on the camping trip, but it just made me think like, man, there's all these underrated things that are going on that might seem like little things, but there's no such thing as a little thing. They all have major impact on our family. And as we celebrate dads this time of year, I think it's a really cool thing to say, hey, Dad, we see you. We understand all these things are tough sometimes, but it's awesome. Keep going.
You know, this is the episode that I feel like we want to jump up and down on the table and say, Dads, you're doing better.
Should we clap for
than
dads?
you think? Yes, Dads.
Yeah.
Round of applause, sound effects. You know, they'll do it in After Effects after that. But I think what we're talking about today aligns perfectly with what we're trying to do with All Pro Dad holistically, whether that's the play of the day, whether it's the video reels, or even the podcast. It's say, hey, it's these small things, Dad, that you're doing that make a big difference that you won't know until they're older. I mean, now that I go back and ask my kids different questions about growing up and things, I ask my second son, there's just so many kids, it's hard to keep up with it. But I asked him, I said, hey, what was something that I did as your dad that you remember growing up? And I mean, I took this boy, all over the country and let him stay in Hampton Inns. I mean, so he had a really good life. So, and he said, when I missed the field goal and you were there for me. Oh, and man. I might even shared that on the podcast. And of course, could I leave that alone? Oh no, I pushed for detail. So what did I say? And he's like, ghosted me. So he's out. Hey, and we just want to say, Dads, you are doing better than you think. Just Absolutely. The fact that you're listening to this podcast says so much about you. So, here's what I want us to say as we dive into this thing today. When we rewind a few decades ago, there were different types of expectations on dads. Dads had to provide, food and shelter. That was it. They came home from work, even the role was keep Dad calm and everybody be quiet. And now it's those things plus emotional support and love and leadership with their kids. It's a lot. That level of expectations on you, Dad, is a whole lot.
Absolutely.
And if it gets unnoticed, I want you to know that does not mean that it's not important. Just because it doesn't go noticed doesn't mean it's not important. And your kids don't have the ability or the skills right now to tell you, Dad, you're really, healing and molding me into a fine young person. They don't have it, but it's just absolutely huge. So Dads, in way of celebrating you, here are a few things that may be underrated in the world that are huge to your kids, which leads me to the big question of the week. You guys ready?
Oh, yeah.
What are some things that dads are doing that are underrated? What are some things that dads are doing that are underrated?
Okay, so I think one of the first places that I would start is that dads provide a sense of security. They provide protection. So Sherry Frankie, who's the daughter of Ruby Frankie, who there's been a documentary on her life and kind of downfall. She was this mom vlogger, family vlogger. She had millions of followers. She kind of was like looked at as America's mom. And ultimately she was arrested for child abuse and went to prison for 30 years. And her daughter, Sherry, the oldest daughter, wrote a book called The House of My Mother, and she's just detailing the abuse that she had her entire life. And she talks in her book about the fact that the abuse that she had opened her up to other abuses. And in the midst of all of this stuff, I mean, I'm not going to go into why or whatever, but her dad had kind of vacated her life. Yeah. And so he wasn't around at a really important time. And she was working for a guy who was double her age. And he took advantage of her and was a sexual predator. And this is the part of the book that I thought was so interesting. She said, during that whole period, I needed my father. Mm-hmm. Wow. I needed him to step in and protect me and provide security. And that's what our presence does. Our presence just gives our kids a sense of security, safety, all of those things.
Yeah. Right. And that's highly underrated. And just your presence of being there is so huge. That's a good point as a protector.
Yeah. I want to read something from a study that I came across that I thought was incredibly fascinating. It was called The Long-Term Effects of Father Involvement in Childhood. Here's the findings of the study. It said, findings indicated that the quantity of father involvement during childhood, and they're kind of categorizing that as 7 to 11 ages, was directly associated with sons' diurnal cortisol patterns assessed almost 30 years later. That's a lot of words. To sum it up, essentially, it means the more present that you were with your kids when they were little, 30 years down the road, those children that were observed had better ability to handle stress in their life just by you being present during those formational years. So you're absolutely right when you tell the story about her needing her father. All kids need their father. They need us to be present because it has impact in the moment, but also long-term impact for your children.
BJ, I always think about the story when I think about presence of your dad coming to watch you to your practice, and you could smell his cigar coming.
Yeah.
That's always, the scent of presence coming to little BJ.
It's kind of funny because my teammates would be like, "Hey, BJ, your dad's here," and I'm like, and I would look over, and there he'd be, So
I love that. That's fantastic. So there's presence. But dads, another thing that is underrated is provision, and that is providing financially. You think how many hours that we put into work, or some of you are maybe even looking for work to provide, and we take it for granted. We underrate it in our own value, right? Without it, our house doesn't live on love. The Wells Fargo is not looking for a paycheck of kisses, right? Yeah. And so it's those things. You providing is such a big deal. It's a big deal. So don't forget that, dads. Just go. I know you're tired a lot and you still play with the kids. You're still present. So good job on that. Very underrated. Thing number 2 that you're doing that's underrated is playing with your kids. Playing with your kids. It's just so massive. It's creating memories. It's creating laughter. And I think it's those moments that your kids go, "Hey, dad likes me."
Oh, yeah.
He has to love me. It's in the dad rule book. Yeah. But my dad likes me. He enjoys being with me. In fact, there's a lot of research about this, but according to a Utah State University study, when kids play with their parents, ideally child-directed play, kids are the boss, it improves a child's self-control, the way they handle their feelings and how they feel about themselves. They also experience an increase in self-esteem. Isn't that incredible? Yeah. And there's also a benefit to us. The benefit to us is the same study shows that dads who play with their kids see reduced stress levels and an increased release of oxytocin. Now watch what that does. It's a hormone associated with trust and relationship building. And I love that the brain is wired like that. So playing with your kids, although you may get, a tooth chipped, it is worth it in the level of oxytocin that blends you together.
It doesn't have to be super complex. I mean, recently my son brought me his broken chessboard. And so we were like, this is trash. Let's make a new one. We actually made one out of wood together, and we played chess the last couple of nights, which is awesome. But it doesn't have to be even that complex. You don't have to like be a master craftsman and come up with something to just play with your kids. You can do simple things. In fact, I remember a couple of years ago, have you ever played that game Fruit Ninja on your smartphone?
Yeah.
You ever seen that? If you're not familiar with it, it's kind of an older game now, but essentially it's just this mind-numbing game where like fruit shows up on the screen and you use a little sword and you swipe across and you cut the fruit in half. I'm like, we do enough screens. Let's take this outdoors. So I was like, all right, kids, find a baseball bat. We're going to go out to the field. We're going to go to the grocery store. We bought some lemons. We bought some little oranges. We bought some like raspberry, all this fruit, right? I'm like, all right, who can blast this apple as far as possible? And I would like softball pitch them the fruit, and they would fruit ninja in real life and just smash this fruit, and it's the stickiest fun ever. And that was like years ago, and they still bring it up years later. They're like, man, hey, can we go do Fruit Ninja again? That was awesome. And I was like, yeah, it was really kind of, sticky and gross at the end, but it was great. It was a cool memory. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It can just be something as simple as that, or making paper airplanes with your kids, or just rolling cars on the floor, or anything like that builds quality time. Playing with your kids is such a cool thing that dads get to do.
It's huge. And that's actually a very expensive game if you've been to the farmer's market. So I'd like to say hats off to you for investing into such a great memory. No, it is those things, right? It's how kids are wired. But if you're not a dad who's a big fruit ninja and you can't think of things, like Bobby's always so great at thinking of fun things. Hey, we've got a lot of ideas for you on All Pro Dad, and we'll put those in the show notes.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about having fun with your kids and doing things, and they're going to remember that forever. But according to Penn State, so 63% of individuals who had a good relationship with their parents said their parents use humor. Which is related to fun, but playtime is play, and you laugh a lot. But just using humor can be a powerful thing. So my son had a debate in the past week, and I had heard that it was not going well, that it went poorly, and so my wife texted me. She's like, "This is not going well." So I decided to bring my son his favorite food, and I stopped by the fast food place and brought it to him, and I came up to him and I said, "So how did it go?" And he goes, "Well, I got flustered at one point and just started crying in front of my entire class." And so I just kept looking at him and I went, "It's a really bold strategy, buddy. Like, I think I might have gone in a different direction, but did it work? Did it work? How well did it?" Yeah. And so he started laughing. I laughed. It took the air out of it a little bit. And then eventually I told him kind of one of my most humiliating things that's ever happened while I was public. This is the first time I ever had the opportunity to public speak. I was in 7th grade and we had to do a book report and we had to dress up like the main character from the story. Yeah. And I didn't even finish the book. The night before, as I was preparing, I was like, I'll just figure something to say at the end. Like, I'll just figure. And I got up there and I got halfway through my book report, and I didn't have anything else. And I couldn't think of anything else on the fly. And so I'm standing up there awkwardly and just kind of humiliated. I was like, that's all I got. and my teacher had this opportunity at that point. Like, he could either, he could save me.
Yeah, or crush you.
Yeah. Well, and he goes, I expected more. And so I'm just, standing up there awkwardly in front of my class. The fact that
shame's always helpful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He just leaned into the shame. And the fact that like the main character of my book was female and I was dressed like a girl with a wig, just
No,
that's good.
There's not photo evidence of this, is there?
There's no photo evidence of it, thank God, but it just kind of added to the humiliation of
what
the
was
whole
the
thing.
book?
Oh, I mean, there was such a traumatic, I can't even remember.
You blacked it all out.
No, obviously it wasn't that good a book.
So you're like, there's some times to one up our kids, and that was a good way to one up your kid. It was like, but BJ, when you shared this story, I thought that's it. By having that humor, it's like you're saying, hey, I'm sure it felt like a huge deal to him because it was, but you bring it, hey, that's a bold strategy. Yeah. I think it's like, hey, you're going to be okay. You're okay.
Yeah.
I love that. Just the calmness approach. And I think you do that across the board. I love even your humor's got a level of calm and snark and sarcasm that I personally really appreciate.
So we laughed at your story, but did your son laugh at that story?
He did. He did. He liked it. And again, he can look at me and kind of go, well, you're fine. You know, you're okay. And not only that, but like I public speak as part of my job.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of who I am. Like I've spoken in front of, 500 people before. Like it's fine. And this was my first time doing it. I tell you what, I've never been unprepared since.
Yeah.
So, so it's these kind
shame,
of
shame was a great tool that day for you, right?
Yeah, I would highly suggest that fathers just lean into shame. Wherever that teacher is. And he wasn't a bad teacher, but that moment I was like, you could have handled that a lot differently in a lot of different ways. But
that's a fun moment your son's going to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the point. Don't underrate the power of the fun moments that you create, whether that's wrestling with them, whether that's, making an issue not feel so big because of fun. These moments that you're creating that are fun, and come on, Dad, you're probably more fun than you think. They're so important.
Yeah. Humor is a big deal. Another thing that's really important for dads, and maybe an underrated thing you may not recognize as a huge deal, is you are setting an example for your kids. This became apparent to me the other day when my son, who's about 10, he's very high and very low in his emotions. He's got a very short fuse. He's different than me in that way because I'm kind of even keel in most situations. And he was very frustrated the other day. And he came to me and I could see it in his face. He's like, oh, there's something bugging me. And he looked at me and said, Dad, how can you not get upset about stuff? And I was like, well, no, but I do. I do get upset about stuff. But we had a really great conversation in that moment. I was like, I can't let my emotions rule me. I can't get too high or too low in any situation. And so I didn't really ever have that conversation with him before, but I had modeled that. I had set that example for him throughout his entire life that when that moment came and he felt overwhelmed, he came to me and was like, Dad, I notice that you're never screaming and yelling, or you're never high, you're never low. How do you do that? I need to know, because he could feel that tension in his body. It's that example that dads are setting. You may not even recognize you're doing it. You may not ever have a conversation with your kids about something, but they are watching you and they see what you do. And it may come up at the perfect opportunity where you can really have a heart-to-heart with your kid and be like, hey man, you picked up on this. It matters, and here's how we can go forward.
I love that. I love that. Another thing that we do as dads that I think is underrated is that we encourage independence. I think dads, stereotypically, but I think dads have a little bit more of that gear to go, we're going to let them try some things out so they can grow up to be adults that don't depend on us, that can function without us. And I think dads, we're pretty good about that.
So recently my son got his driver's license. And I remember that day.
You do look stressed out right now.
Yeah. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. But I remember the day I got my license and I came home and the first thing I said to my dad was, hey, can I take the car? Like immediately. And my dad was like, yeah, go ahead. And I drove to a friend's house like I won the Super Bowl.
Nice.
And so my son took his driver's test. He passed. I got the text from my wife. He passed. He came home and I said, hey, what do you want to do? And he goes, never drive again. Ooh. And I was like, why? And he's like, oh, it just stresses me out. And I thought, no, you need to, I'm like, go here, take the keys, go somewhere. And meanwhile, my wife, who's great, but she wants to practice. She wants to do practice sessions everywhere he's going to drive. And I'm like, go learn. You're going to just learn by doing. And we've kind of had to find a space, but I'm much more, hey, go step out, go. And I think dads do that a lot of times. We encourage these things like go out and find go out and do it.
That's a great thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And BJ, what you're saying is backed by research. You know that dads encourage, this is going to be a shocker, dads encourage more risk-taking behavior than moms.
That's not shocking.
Not in the least, isn't it?
So, same son, but when he was about 6 years old, we were at a playground at this one time, and the playground had like two different things, and there was this huge bar that connected them that was pretty high. And it wasn't designed to be played on. It was just kind of holding stability, the things by chains and, everything below it that you're supposed to play on is down here. Well, I look over and I see my son is on top of it, traversing the top of it. And I'm looking at him and this mom comes running over, a friend of ours, and she was like, she goes, you know, your son's climbing across. And I said, yep. And she goes, and you don't care. And I said, no, I care a lot. I'm super proud of him.
Way to go.
And she said, she goes, well, what if he falls? I go, he'll probably break something. But I tell you what, I bet he thinks that the adventure was worth it if that even happens. And so like these little things like, yeah, go risk it. Go do these things. Yeah. Whereas moms are like, no, don't.
Yeah, good job, Dad. Go.
Well, it's not just risk. I mean, you're building independence by teaching skills. I bought like the most exciting thing I've ever bought last week. It was a power washer for the patio. Like this is the sort of stuff old people like. And so I bought this power washer and I was out there working and, you know, cleaning the deck and everything. And my son walked out and he goes, that looks cool. Can I do it? And in my head, I'm like, I kind of want to get it done and over with. Like, I'd rather just finish it. But then I'm like, you know what? Sure, let's give it a shot. So I showed him how to use it and he's like, I got it from here. And I just went and did something else. And he just took it upon himself to do the job. And afterwards I praised him. I was like, man, you just learned a new skill. You helped our family. That's awesome. Way to go. I mean, you're encouraging those sort of skills. And we do all sorts of stuff like that. It's just, hey, learn how to load the dishwasher, learn how to mow the lawn. You're teaching them stuff they're going to need as they're older. I actually saw a really cool video the other day. It kind of went viral. And it was a mom who was sitting in the front seat of her car in a parking lot of a Chick-fil-A. She was just recording herself talking and she was nervous. She was like, oh my gosh, I just sent my 7-year-old in to buy chicken by himself. And I'm like, okay, way to go. That's awesome. And she's videoing the kid come out. He's got the food in the bag. He gets over to the car and mom's like, okay, how'd it go? Did you give him the money? And the kid's beaming. He's like, I bought chicken. And he's like, and they gave me money back. Cause I guess he didn't have a concept of change or whatever. And so the mom's saying, okay, how did you feel? Were you scared? Were you nervous? He goes, yeah, but it was so fun. Can we do that again tomorrow? And I was like, this is a really great video. It's showing the kid is building skills. He's building independence. And dads have a chance to do that too with their kids. It happened to be mom in this video, but dads, we got the chance to do this sort of stuff too. And we should, because kids need to learn those skills.
We should. And dads, you are. You know, think back right now as we think about celebrating what you're doing that's underrated. What are those moments that you've given your kids to have independence and you've seen those things work? I came in with, of all things, toilet seats. And I told my 7-year-old, I was like, go install this. And I'm thinking, that's a low risk, right? It's just, you know, he comes back, he goes, Dad, come here. I go in, it's perfect. He goes, Dad, I think I need to make some flyers for us to put in the neighborhood that I can install toilet seats. And I went, absolutely. Nice. We're all over that. You know, you just get the clip art, it'll be fantastic. But, you know, it's those things, dads. There's so many things you're doing that you're just doing naturally, or even more so, you're doing intentionally to help your kids that are underrated. I promise you, of a dad of older kids, what you're doing matters. It matters. You're doing better than you think. And so that leads to our pro move of the week, which you're probably doing already, but choose one little thing to do that's going to make a big difference in your kid's life. Choose one little thing that you can do that'll make a big difference in your kid's life.
Absolutely. This is the pat on the back episode. Like, Dad, you're doing great. We just want you to hear that. If you don't hear it at any other time, we're saying it now. You're doing great.
You guys, it's good hanging out with you today.
Absolutely.
Hey, and if you'd like to get what we call the play of the day, you can sign up for that. You can get the link in your show notes. And once a day, you're going to get an email that gives you a little bit of encouragement. Take you 3 minutes to read it, and you will continue to leverage some things that you know to want to be a great dad. And by the way, happy Father's Day. Great job listening. Thank you for listening. We know that you and your kids will be glad that you did. Thanks for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the All Pro Dad Play of the Day, by going to allprodad.com/subscribe and get daily powerful and practical fatherhood tips in your inbox. The All Pro Dad podcast is hosted by me, Ted Lowe, produced by Bobby Lewis.